you. Hello. Welcome back after a long, nice week away from the show. Well, almost a week. We did a space yesterday, which was a lot of fun. If you haven't listened to it, go to my Twitter profile at Lou Angeles, L-U Angeles, and listen to the conversation we had yesterday. It was a lot of fun. I'll actually be putting it up on YouTube here in the next day or two. But yeah, it's good to be back, guys. Good to be back. Welcome to Lou Reviews, your home and destination for critical thinking in the realm of the unexplained. I am your host, Luis Jimenez. Today, well, before we get into what we're doing today, we got to go through paying the bills. Hit that like, share, subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the bell, that way you're notified anytime we go live. And if you really love the show, if you got a burning question that you just must have answered, we've got super chats as well. So consider that. And we've got a Patreon. Link is in the description below. So with all of that said, today we're going to be diving into the intriguing tale of Tim Gallaudet and his enigmatic family history, shrouded in whispers of the supernatural. Yes, you heard that correctly. Additionally, we are going to explore the recommendations of Congressman Robert Garcia, who's actually in my town. I'm pretty sure that's my district. He was the mayor of Long Beach, so he's definitely in the Los Angeles area. So who knows? Maybe I could pay a visit to one of his staffers and discuss the UAPDA with him. Meanwhile, Daniel Sheehan ignites fury over purported false whistleblowers, adding fuel to the fire of controversy. And as if on cue, Garry Nolan also makes headlines with more of his perplexing comments. So let's get into it, you guys. Again, want to say hello. Well, I haven't already. So hello to Jason Parker, Tina Teeden, Sandra McDonald, who is in Australia and waking up at the butt crack of dawn to watch this show. Thank you for being here. R. Wolf, thank you. Higher than a mug. Flashback 01. All of you guys, thank you so damn much for being here. It's an absolute pleasure. Let me go ahead and pause this here. Pause the music, and I'm going to pull up, as I already did, our Lou Reviews thing here. Brad Berrywood Shaken, Grace DeVars, UFO Shane, Morty Matt, all you guys, TJ Felony, Jason Parker, James Doyle, all you guys, thank you so damn much for being here. Okay, let's get into it, shall we? So let's start with the first thing I've got. I got a lot of pinned stuff because we've been away for a week. So we got a lot to talk about. Let's see here. So the first thing is Garry Nolan. Let's just go ahead and listen to this. This is from That UFO podcast, this clip. I want to go ahead and say fair use. This is transformative work. We're educating the public on the videos that we are sharing. This is covered under fair use and allowable by law. And let me move that there. Boom, perfect. Look at this. It's almost like we're almost perfectly produced. All right, let me unmute the screen. Let me turn up the volume. All right, we're learning.
Recently, another friend of yours, colleague Lou Elizondo, in a statement said he was aware of threats made against himself, his family, and other whistleblowers. I'd love your take on that and how you see that playing out. And do you think this could put a stop to other whistleblowers coming forward?
It certainly casts a pall. I mean, I know the specific incident that Lou is discussing, and it was real.
This is This is the thing now. Everybody's coming out defending Lou on these very, very real threats. And then Garry Nolan's going to give his own interpretation of a threat that he got here. It's just interesting. But yeah, we'll break it down here. That's going to be the early theme of the show. Threats.
And it's real. And it's ongoing. You know, that information might go public. It's not my place to say it. But it's pretty serious. I mean, look, I got a phone call myself at one point, basically telling me to be careful how I was talking about things. And I won't go into the specifics of what was said and all the rest, but it shook me. It was a call from somebody in the government, or representing what was being said in certain circles. And it was a threat, you know, and
it was a threat, you know. Somebody calling you, especially since you're so deeply involved in this. Garry Nolan has connections that go all the way to Congress. If I'm not mistaken, Garry Nolan himself has visited lawmakers and staffers and members of Congress in the past. He I'm pretty sure worked I don't want to get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's a CIA spook. And I don't remember the details of that, but if you do want the details to that, check out Steve Cambion and just type in Garry Nolan spook, CIA spook, and it should come up. But this guy has, my point being, he's got ties to the Stanford Research Institute, which was funded by the CIA. He's got ties to Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis, Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon. So it's fair to say that he's had a lot of conversations and a lot of interactions with people behind the scenes that are public and people that are public. It's not out of the realm of possibility for one of those people to be like, hey, buddy, like if I were you, I'd be careful who you're hanging around with, what you're saying publicly, and what you're supporting, because it could turn around and bite you in the ass. You know, I'm just looking out for you. Like, because what you're saying right now is wrong. Maybe the people around, maybe they suggested, hey, the people around you specifically are not very honest people, and they're also wrong. They've got no evidence. They don't work in the offices that they claim they have worked in. There's a lot of red flags with these people that are around you. You know, just FYI. And then you turned a conversation like that, possibly turned a conversation like that into a threat narrative story. Who was it? I mean, when I got blackmailed and when I got emails and basically threats from people, I shared who was doing that stuff. In most cases, it was very public. So it's not like I needed to share a lot of that stuff. But you know, if you feel like your life or your career is threatened by a gatekeeper that you're vociferously fighting, name them. Tell people who they are. You're so confident in that. You're so confident that there's no repercussions in that, because what you're saying is true. And the way he kind of just Garry always does this every once in a while. I feel like when he did that whole explanation of you don't need a straight line to evidence. You can just kind of skip a few steps if you're smart enough to get to what the evidence is, what the conclusion is. And he kind of does this eye-wandering kind of thing. And when he talks about these threats, he kind of does it the same way.
It shook me. It was a call from somebody in the government, or representing what was being said in certain circles. And it was a threat, And
It was a threat.
that was the first time I ever felt, okay, this is getting personal. And
How long ago was this?
it wasn't a threat by them. It was telling me that the way I was talking about things.
Okay, so was it a threat or wasn't it? He just said it wasn't a threat by them. It was more of a suggestion. Let's listen to that again.
It wasn't a threat by them.
Can we listen to that one more time?
It wasn't a threat by them. It was a.
Let me just one more time, just for clarity.
It wasn't a threat by them. It
Okay.
was telling me that the way I was talking about things, I needed to be careful.
Right. Right. You know the building in Stanford that has your fucking name on it? You want to be careful, Garry. You're doing great research in the world of cancer. Stick to your lane, pal. Like, from one professional to another, and from one friend to another, stop. But no. Not Garry Nolan. I wonder what Andres thinks about Garry Nolan. I don't think this is a belief system. Maybe it's partly belief system because he does explain that he's been abducted. He's been chosen by these beings. Oh man. It's fascinating that if a person does, let's say, have this belief system and has experienced things like that, which, by the way, are very explainable, can be very explainable, to, making massive strides in cancer research. Like, I find it so hard to believe that those two things can coexist. I do find it more feasible that somebody spinning a narrative for a certain purpose coming out of a certain university funded by certain people pretending to believe this stuff in order to get more grants and things like that makes sense. That makes a little more sense. The whole cancer research, name on the building, respected immunologist.
Because there are others who will.
Okay, I just got to hear that one more time. This is a 1:30 clip, and it's not until the last 15 seconds where he's like, well, they didn't actually threaten me. It was more advice. Let's listen to the whole clip again. Why not? We've got the time.
And recently, another friend of yours, colleague Lou Elizondo,
Unreal.
in a statement said he was aware of threats made against himself, his family, and other whistleblowers. I'd love your take on that and how you see that playing out. And do you think this could put a stop to other whistleblowers coming forward?
It certainly casts a pall. I mean, I know the specific incident that Lou is discussing, and it was real, and it's real, and it's ongoing. That information might go public. It's not my place to say it, but it's pretty serious.
Serious.
I got a phone call myself at one point.
I got a phone call myself at one point.
Me to be careful how I was talking about things.
Be careful how I was talking about things.
And I won't go into the specifics of what was said and all the rest, but it shook me.
It shook him.
It was a call from somebody in the government.
Somebody from the government.
Or representing what was being said.
Or representing what was being said? So someone in the government or representing what was being said. So a staffer? A lawmaker?
certain circles. And it was a threat.
It was a threat.
And
so spooky. You got all the spooky things in there. Mysterious military person, or someone who might be just a lawmaker, or even worse, a staffer. You got, it was a threat. They told you what to say. Be careful.
And that
it shook you.
Was the first time I ever felt, okay, this is getting personal.
First time it ever made you feel something like you were genuinely threatened.
And
personal
it
attack.
Wasn't a threat by them. It was telling me that the way I was talking about things.
But it wasn't an actual threat by them. It was just the way I was talking about things. They were.
I needed to be careful.
Just be careful.
Because there are others who will.
They do stuff like this all the time in these kinds of discussions, where they give you the fantasy, and in the last chunk of it, they're like, all that stuff I just said didn't actually happen. It was just basically a colleague trying to give me some good advice. That's the way I took it. Okay, so this clip right here, I uploaded this to the YouTube channel, so a lot of you guys might have seen this, but this hasn't been put on any of the podcast platform things. So this sort of sets up this threat narrative that we've just been discussing. And so there was a space last week where Daniel Sheehan made this claim that that somebody who worked on the UFO legacy reverse engineering program was found dead. And the cause of death was, I believe, ruled a suicide. But detectives are still looking, and independent investigators are still looking at this death. Some think it's not a suicide, that it was a murder. So there's an example of a whistleblower, and this UFO reverse engineering legacy program employee apparently was getting ready to blow the whistle on the alien reverse engineered program. And they offed themselves, quote unquote, and some people think there's foul play. And this was an example that he used to double down the threats and make more valid and real and visceral the threats that his client, or former client, I believe now former client, Lou Elizondo, is getting. That he's getting threats on this kind of level. Now we're going to get a little bit into this, because some are saying that Lou Elizondo is taking the very real Boeing employees fearing for their lives, and some of them mysteriously, it's not funny, it's actually pretty scary and very strange, and I don't think it's a coincidence, but hey, not all the facts are in, we're gonna have to wait. But Boeing employees are popping up dead, engineers and people who are in the know. And he's taken that whole headline and that whole storyline and sort of coupled it with his UFO reverse engineering legacy lore book selling propaganda thing. That's the grumblings and the rumblings. No evidence of that, but that's what people are saying. So we've got Danny Sheehan, we've got Marieke von Kloppenstick, we've got Garry Nolan. All of these guys are coming out and saying, yes, these threats are real. And in the case of Danny Sheehan, he gives an example of somebody who was potentially murdered. And I asked him the question about that because honestly, my original question was, hey, look, we've never, because he was talking about the national security state and how it's such a real nuisance when it comes to UFO whistleblowers. And his big thing is that there's no whistleblower protections for people who have retired. And it's like, well, those guys retired early and they're retired under their own volition. They didn't have to retire. They chose to retire. And now it's conveniently, oh, well, we're not protected, therefore we're not going to really blow the whistle? That doesn't make any sense. So there's this whole threat narrative being built. People are having their lives threatened. Everybody's scared for their lives when it couldn't be farther from the truth. And when you ask him for details on the person who died, all of a sudden, he doesn't have to give you this information. Hey, buddy, if the person that committed suicide or was murdered, or if there was foul play like you're suggesting, why wouldn't you give us her name? We'd be able, with all the internet sleuths and investigators and Inspector Gadgets out there, they would find where she works. They'd FOIA the shit out of it. We'd have a lot more answers based off of her untimely passing. And maybe some of those answers lead to maybe what happened to her, if there was foul play, which I don't think there was. And I keep calling it a her. I think that's because I have someone in mind as to who I think he might have been using as an example, but it could be wrong. It could be a him. The point is, we don't know because he wouldn't be specific. And this is what happened when I got into this discussion with him. So this is a 5-minute, 40-second clip. So I'm going to let this play out, and we'll talk about it here at the end. We might pause in between here and there.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Larry, and then Jay Just. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think all the questions have been pretty quick. Danny, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
It's been a while since I've talked to you. We've spoken a few times, so it's good to chat for a question. The question I was going to ask was going to be prefaced with something that contradicts what you said, and if you could give us the name of the person that is the supposed suicide victim from the back engineered program, maybe I could back off this question a little bit, but. The question is,
no, I'm not going to give that to you.
Here's the thing. Like, I wasn't even going to ask him the question. I was just going to let that go by. But if he can sort of add to the question I'm about to ask, but he stops me to tell me, no, I'm not telling you shit.
I mean, you know, I have any particular unique standing to be authorized to have me.
Well, I mean, it would help if it was a publicly known person. That's all. I mean, it might give us some clues as to what program they worked with.
No, they were not a publicly known person.
But it was a homicide though, yes?
No.
Okay.
I did not say that at all. Well, we don't know which of the two it was, but it.
But I'm saying there should have been, there should have been a police report. Is my point.
there's an ongoing police
Okay,
investigation going on.
when that police investigation ends, would you maybe be willing to tell the people who that might be?
Well, there would probably be a publicly available police report on that.
Okay. Well, the reason why I was prefacing it with that is the Paradigm Institute. You talk about the national security state as, you know, a pretty big monster to deal with. So you have the Paradigm Institute.
No. I haven't. You
Okay.
got to be careful of characterizing.
Well, I'm saying, well, they're very problematic
question.
when it comes to whistleblowers and the UFO discussion. Is that fair? Okay,
that's a fair statement.
All right,
that's a fair.
All right, that's good enough.
No, hold on. I didn't get to ask my question. I'm sorry.
You asked the question.
Go ahead.
I have not, as far as the whistleblowers that have been public, Grush, Elizondo, Mellon, if you want to count him, I have not heard of one whistleblower that has been reprimanded or fired or lost their job or their pension. So Danny Sheehan before this was talking about how people are losing pensions, people getting fired, people's lives are being threatened, all of these things that are happening to these whistleblowers. And it's like, is it anything different than from what I get? Or from what Rather gets, or any other person that's public figure in the online world? He's making massive claims, so it's natural that people are going, they're going to go hard on those claims. Some people are going to go very hard on those claims. So that's why I'm asking this question. You know, because he's saying that his Paradigm Research Institute, where you can get a degree in ufology, basically, for $16,000, an honorary PhD, it's not real. It's not a real PhD. No one's gonna hire you with this doctorate. You might be able to do some cool UFO conventions with this doctorate, but anyway, it's just so silly. It's so damn silly. And every single one of those gentlemen retired under their own volition. And there have been more than 3 people, obviously, for the 40 that have gone to Arrow, but there have been even more than the 40 that we know of. So my question to you is, what if that's not actually happening to these whistleblowers? What's the point of you know, like, to me, I look at Edward Snowden and that he's got all of these lawyers in the wings waiting to protect these whistleblowers. Okay, so go protect them. Like, they don't have if they don't have the congressional protections, then go protect them. Go represent David Grush. Go represent Lou Elizondo. Go represent Jason Sands. Almost said Jason Bourne. Like, what's the point of the Paradigm Research Institute? Really is the question. I'm trying to ask it as nicely as I can. What's the point of you and a whole bunch of lawyers? Who's going to pay for these hours that you're going to rack up with this legal team? You going to volunteer your time? I mean, good luck. But so far, I don't think anybody's knocking down his door. I wonder why. Me as a whistleblower, if these guys were whistleblowers on that level, why aren't we seeing the same response, the actual repercussions of whistleblowing national security secrets?
I must say you're probably one of the more poorly informed people that I've talked to for a while about all this, because the fact is that, you know, the instantaneously the national security clearance, he immediately goes to an ad hominem attack. I am the most poorly informed person on this. That doesn't make any sense.
Like, how can you say that? We've only been talking for a couple of minutes, and I'm simply asking you. I mean, it's a real simple question. If these guys are getting the threats and like the real repercussions, like an Edward Snowden, really, it's the New Paradigm Institute that would take the brunt of that? Why didn't you do it for Edward Snowden? That's one question I wanted to ask Danny Sheehan, this civil rights, this libertarianish attorney who fights for civil liberties. Why weren't you? Where were you when? Where are you now? How come you never ever talk about real whistleblowers like Edward Snowden or Julian Assange? You should go represent them. Why don't the New Paradigm Institute go fight the government on that one like you did with Silkwood? No, that whistleblower's way too difficult to deal with. We want to deal with the ones that aren't actually blowing a whistle. Way simpler to deal with. Way easier to sell PhDs when we're representing those guys. Say no more.
Both Lou and Chris Mellon were immediately challenged, and they had to go through.
Here's the thing, also, like, the security clearances of Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon should have been challenged the second that these videos came out and the second that New York Times article dropped. That should have been the first thing. And when I say challenge, I mean, hey, let's bring these guys back into the office and recheck their security clearances just to make sure and double down on who we're dealing with. Because we need to know everything right now. Because I think the article and maybe some of those videos getting out the way they did surprised the Department of Defense. Even though they technically had permission.
Long, drawn-out process of being reinterrogated, to have to basically go in and reestablish all the bona fides of their
but
they weren't
security
fired.
clearances. They were
right. They weren't fired. Their families' lives weren't threatened. Nobody was killed. They still have jobs and security clearances in independent contracting, military contracts. Their lives are fine. I know for sure Lou lives on a ranch with multiple acres on it. Multiple acres. Over there in Wyoming. So don't worry about it. Everybody's fine.
Fired. Their lives weren't threatened.
Yeah, but that's like saying, yeah, we beat the shit out of
No,
you.
that's not the same.
So that you don't have any.
Lou, let him answer, and then we got to go to the next person.
We have
I'm just saying that your assumptions of your question are completely incorrect. That they did in fact suffer all kinds of adverse consequences, that require much more aggressive protection than the present statutes provide. For example, one of the positions that the Inspector General took of the Defense Department is that Lou, that no matter how much aggressive attacks may have been waged against him, as long as he was no longer an employee of the federal government, he wasn't covered by the whistleblower statute. Period.
But
and
he
so
retired,
that no matter how much he was harassed,
he retired.
That isn't being threatened. The laws are written for whistleblowers to come out of the programs that exist, none of which Elizondo was a part of. The laws are written to protect the people who are working in the programs today, right now, as we speak. The guy who's releasing publicly available footage and making up a story about ATIP in the New York Times and doing TV shows and hanging out with Tom DeLonge doing, cyber money rallies to build spaceships. Like, what kind of protections does that guy need? He's been doing this since 2017. It's been 7 years. He's fine. His life is not in any danger. He didn't have to move to Russia because of the whistleblowing. Neither has David Grush. Neither has Christopher Mellon. So nobody knows what the fuck you're talking about, Danny Sheehan. Nobody understands. Because like always, these stories lack specificity. And when you ask them for the specificity, they're not obliged to fucking tell you.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, that's exactly the moment they kicked me out of the space.
I'm saying that excluded him from any protections under the Whistleblower Act. So that if people were calling him up, calling him up on the phone and threatening him or to try and take away his security clearance or telling lies about him, a whole series of things that are complete wrong.
All of those things did not happen
on the part of people against him.
They may have called and threatened him to take away his security clearance, but it didn't happen. He still gets to work for military contracts, guys. It's okay. Like, he's fine. He's fine.
Punish him for doing it, that he was getting no protection whatsoever. You can't say that because he didn't have his security clearance ultimately revoked, there was no harm done to him. You're just suggesting that there's no harm really coming to these people at all. And that's just completely false. The whole premise of your question is wrong.
All right. Well, we're going to move forward.
All right. Well, that's it from the UFO handlers. The rest of the questions in in that discussion were absolutely disgusting. They were just terrible. Terrible questions. They let him get away with everything he wanted to say. And then after that discussion, Daniel Sheehan puts out this tweet. Okay? So after that discussion, I think he started getting a bunch of shit about who the hell are you talking about? Who's this person that died? They were part of the UFO reverse engineering legacy program? Who the fuck is it? Because before that, he had said that 20 minutes prior to me asking him that question. He had gotten like 10 questions before I got to ask him about that massive claim that he made. So after that question, after I made a clip of it, which is the clip I just showed you guys, I put it on my YouTube, I shared it on Twitter. Shortly after that discussion on May 25th at 9:00 at night, he writes, in light of the public profile of my client at Lou Elizondo, so still reps Lou, and the fact that he already endured multiple threats to him and his family, it was prudent to sensitize people to the fact that the person associated with the UFO back engineering program, who apparently committed suicide, could be yet another retaliation against potential whistleblower. It wasn't until law enforcement concluded its investigation that we learned that no foul play was involved. Always better to be safe than sorry. My experience working historically in cases like Karen Silkwood has taught me that real threats do exist, and sometimes having a greater public awareness is a way to defend against such egregious acts. So sorry, I implied that somebody was murdered who was genuinely murdered, not murdered, but like off themselves. He uses that to sell this narrative that Lou Elizondo's life's in danger. And until somebody, this guy right here, called him out on it in that discussion, he would have never had to make a public statement like this. He had to go and look at the investigation instead of just talk shit out of his ass. It wasn't until law enforcement concluded its investigation that we learned no foul play was involved. How long ago did they conclude this investigation? Can you tell us who it was? What case are you talking about? Again, he still doesn't give you any specificity, zero here. He just gives you basically a half-assed apology. Doesn't even apologize for saying, hey, sorry. Always better to be safe than sorry. I guess he does say sorry once in this, but it's not in an actual apologetic form. This is a real lawyery way of saying, oopsies. My bad. Oopsie. I used somebody's suicide to sell that Lou Elizondo is getting death threats. And other whistleblowers are too. I worked on Silkwood. I know real death threats when I see them. What's that? The law enforcement investigated concluded that there was no foul play. Oh, well. I already said it. Stephen Greenstreet. Any more specific details regarding the beyond apparently and could be? It's so stupid, man. It's so dumb that this guy gets thousands of people to sit there and listen to him in a space. Unreal, dude. Unreal. So this was really cool. This is the farthest ever landing on Titan, the moon of Saturn. And a lot of people don't know about it. And so I wanted to share it. The sound is absolutely terrible. I feel like it's a drone system of some kind. Or that's some sort of sensor to let them know how close they are to the ground. Boop. Sounds like an Atari game. But it's pretty cool. Like, this is the stuff maybe we should be talking about. What kind of strange alien life is on this moon? Microbial? Who knows? But nobody's really talking about it, which is kind of sad. Hey, what was this? Oh, I thought, okay, yeah, this is why I wanted to play this. This is really cool. So this is, in 1861, Japan drew some unhinged illustrations of America's founding fathers. But, like, this is how, I found it interesting because, like, it's interesting how different cultures depict things that they're hearing. Like, if you go and look at, man, we've done this before, where I've suggested this before. Go look at mid-century paintings of cats when people were coming from different parts of the world and going, holy shit, you gotta see one of these things they call cats, because that wasn't a thing in mid-century Europe. Cats weren't a thing. And so when they would come back and describe them, the drawings, the paintings that the painters would do were insane. And so this is a similar thing. So when we listen, and the reason why this is relevant to the UFO discussion is because when people look at petroglyphs and hieroglyphs and they hear about stories of airships and all of these wild, wild things, just think of these illustrations that were given to artists, basically not first-hand accounts, but as close to first-hand accounts as you can get. So the American Revolution is happening in the United States, and they're getting stories and updates, however they're getting them, probably by ship, and they're illustrating them. And these are the things that they came up with. It's so funny. I'm gonna kill the music because I have a feeling. Okay, so this is George Washington shooting his shot with the goddess of America. George Washington with a bow and arrow and the goddess of America looking on, you know, in support. Dude, it's so cool. This is some of the coolest shit I've ever seen. George Washington stomping out a tiger. And I'm assuming the tiger is the British invasion. Dude, it is so cool. John Adams fighting a giant snake. I love it, dude. This is just the coolest shit. Benjamin Franklin shooting a giant cannon under the guidance of John Adams. This one is so cool. I mean, they're all really cool. In more of a wholesome moment, John Adams, a picnic. What is it? John Adams has a picnic with his mom. Oh, man. That is so funny. But then a giant snake comes out of nowhere and eats her. Holy shit. Like, what these drawings were used as metaphors. John Adams asked a large magic fairy for help. The fairy says, "I got you, bro," and summons a ginormous eagle, which looks like a peacock. So cool. John Adams and the eagle go to work on the snake that ate his mom. Ay, 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 dude. Can only imagine what stories they were attaching to these illustrations. You know, the snake probably represents the British Empire and how the British Empire stressed and possibly was the death of his mother because of John Adams being so entrenched in the Revolutionary War. Who knows? Who knows what it's all about? But it's cool. It's cool, and it's a neat example of how humans exaggerate on things through illustrations. It's just a natural progression. So I thought that was cool. This was another really cool video, and there was a correction to it. Either way, this is sick. Okay, yeah, I gotta mute this song here. So this is an experiment I guess they did on Jimmy Kimmel Live, I think. I don't know. I've never seen this clip. And this clip is filmed. It's you just see it. As explained in the original video source, this is a shock tubing containing an explosive powder. The speed of light is more than 100 times faster than the pressure wave traveling down this tube. So this is a pressure wave of gunpowder, basically explosive powder, traveling down this tube. And in real time, it happens in the blink of an eye. But when they slow it down, you see how fast this explosion of light is traveling through these tubes. And even that is 100 times slower than the actual speed of light. So I thought this was really cool. I wanted to share it with you guys. So check this out. So this is he's got this coil, this ball, and this explosion is going to travel through what seems like 5 miles of wire. It looks like a rat's nest of just wires strewed through the whole studio, and then ends up in this sphere that Kimmel's holding. So boom, that was the whole thing. That was the whole explosion, right? Let's play one more time in real time. Again, just really, really cool. Boom. Over. It's over. Check it out when they slow it down, what happens. This is so cool. Look at that. Travels up and down that coil, through all the wiring on the floor, back to the back of the stage, up and down another coil, Wow, that's crazy. And again, this is 100 times slower, 100,000 times slower than the actual speed of light. Boom, now it goes through the sphere that he's holding, and then it gets sent to that TV, and then that little fireball explosion happens. And that takes longer, I feel like just as long to ignite as the whole light did to travel through all these tubes. Just super cool. Super cool. Again, like thinking about things and traveling at the speed of light, like it like this clip puts that kind of stuff into perspective. Gosh, yeah, I'm not going to go over this because I don't know if we've got the time, but Ashton has been absolutely destroyed by Krishley. She has absolutely dissected almost every frame of the MH370, and every frame of it is fake. It's a fake video. It's always been fake. We called this a year ago when this shit came back into the circle, into the zeitgeist again. Maybe it wasn't a year ago, probably 8-9 months ago, to be fair. It's been an interesting ride that Ashton's been on here this last month. It's been fun to watch, not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. Okay, so here we have UFO Jesus. And I just wanted to answer this whatever this is in real time. Again, let me put in my fair use banner. This is transformative work. We're educating the public on the videos that we are sharing and critiquing. This is covered under fair use and allowable by law. So this is post-disclosure world, Ryan Robbins giving his 2 cents. And he has rants like this all the time. All the time. Oh, disclosure's coming. It's coming, bro. Don't worry, bro. It's almost here, bro. Oh, look at me. I'm jumping in the ocean. This is but just a drop of whatever bullshit philosophical nonsense that comes out of his mouth. He's a nice guy, but he is wholeheartedly nipples deep into this conspiracy. And there's nothing that you can say to get him off it, but let's listen to his points here. And Ganga today, who's just this, I don't even want to describe him, just other than just a waste of time and space. He writes, tags me in this. It says, "For the deaf, dumb, and blind." I guess that's me. So let's listen to what I should be hearing, understanding, and seeing.
Here's how I perceive the UFO cover-up alien debate. Those who deny the UFO cover-up and the presence of non-human intelligence are not just mistaken, their error is profound and significant, overlooking countless pieces of indirect evidence. It's the preponderance of evidence with its unmistakable patterns that make the case. Not
what evidence? Oh, you mean the eyewitness testimony? That could be wrong. That could be in misinterpretation. That could be something that is either implanted in their memories or put there themselves. That the eyewitness testimony that cannot be the only form of evidence when convicting someone in a court of law. That evidence. Okay, continue.
Not a single piece that seals the deal. At least that's what's available in the public domain. If non-human intelligence is present, it's undoubtedly leaving traces and has been doing so for a long time.
Okay, so where are they?
This is a point of agreement across all spectrums of the debate.
No, it's not. It is not a point of agreement. Nobody who's a skeptic or a PhD or a scientist or anyone noteworthy agrees to that. That is 100% incorrect.
If non-human intelligence exists here, it leaves observable signs.
Like what? Observable signs? I thought it was elements and traces. Which one is it? Or is it both? If so, where are they? What are the signs and where are the traces of it? Where can it be measured?
Thus, when the smoking gun evidence inevitably surfaces, claiming an intellectually grounded approach while previously denying evidence of its presence will not be credible.
When that day comes, I'll apologize and agree. But until that day comes, you just look and sound like a raving lunatic.
On the contrary, you ignored the endless traces the phenomena left behind before smoking gun evidence emerged. If you are certain that such smoking gun evidence will never emerge, then there's nothing to concern you. But if it does, it clarifies the dynamics of the debate quite starkly, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. Nope, sure doesn't. Curiosity, just because you're not curious about something that can't be measured and weighed and debated and discussed and written and tested, just because you don't come to the table before it's proven real, that's not a knock. That should be looked at and thanked, because without that, you don't get to the discovery. See how that works? You need the skepticism. You need the hard questions for you to prove the existence of anything. Ah, Ganga, Ryan Robbins, you guys. Okay, so, all right, Tim Gallaudet. Let's get into old Tim Gallaudet. I'll take a seat for this one here. All right. Good old Tim Gallaudet. He was recently on the Sean Ryan show, and we're going to play a few clips here, and then we've got some other clips. I think, you know what, let's just play this long one, and we'll kind of address him as he goes through. Now, again, 10 months ago, I highlighted how Tim Gallaudet was not a whistleblower at any level. I don't think he was really claiming that, but he is using his resume and expertise as a preface to believe him, to believe what he's saying is true. He's using all of his bona fides to say, hey, look, see, I'm a rear admiral in the Navy. You know, so why would I lie to you, kind of thing. And maybe you're not lying. Maybe you're just mistaken. Maybe you just believe. But the thing that got him to start talking about this publicly, he was not into this topic until he saw the Go Fast on a private military server. And he, from that moment, believed that aliens are visiting this planet. Flash forward to a few years after he saw that, it turns out the Go Fast is only going 40 miles per hour. Multiple different institutions and people have confirmed through trigonometry that object is moving very slowly. And it's the parallax effect, and the people who were filming it were either really new to that equipment or just genuinely mistook what they were looking at, which happens all the time. But let's listen to this clip. I'm going to have to stop it every once in a while because this is another fair use moment. Again, we are critiquing and mocking, in some cases, this video. We are doing it to share with the public. This is allowable under fair use and legal. I know that was not how the fair use banner is read, but that's the way it is.
They don't want the public to know that there really is a crash retrieval program and that we are monitoring UAP in our airspace and water space. We can't control their actions and we don't fully understand their intentions. And that's a dangerous thing to leak to the public. And so they are deliberately falsifying it and exploiting people, making them appear as wackos, thus creating a stigma behind the whole scene, which has prevented serious scientific study.
Okay. You could say all of those things about drones. You really could. You could say, all you'd have to do is sub in drone there. And all of those things are still true.
So I've been in this UAP topic for a little over about 2 years. And
I think it's a little longer than that.
And I initially...
Maybe the UAP topic, but definitely not the paranormal topic. And we'll kind of show that here in a minute.
Like Michael Herrera, the Marine, where he saw paramilitary forces from...
Michael Herrera, the guy who came out in a Stephen Greer press conference as a whistleblower and didn't whistleblow a fucking thing. That guy.
Some agency, and that whole story. Originally, I would have dismissed that as... Can't be. Our government doesn't do that. Mm-hmm. But the more I'm learning and that's coming out, and I could talk about some examples, I wouldn't be surprised if there was credibility to that. Because, for example, there's a book out there by a guy named Greg Bishop called Project Beta. Have you ever heard of it?
I haven't.
This is a really good book right now. It's a
Project Beta.
Project Beta, and
Beta.
It's the subtitle is something like the story of Paul Benowitz and the evolution of the modern UFO myth. And what it's about is a civilian physicist who was on contract to work at for the Air Force, I believe, and ultimately he was one of these people who was a civilian researcher in the UAP in the New Mexico area where that's a hot spot. And the Air Force deliberately deceived him and exploited him and even broke into his house to make him believe that there was...
He's talking about Rick Doty, Paul Benowitz, and this guy, again, this guy was filming drone swarms in the late 80s, early 90s. Technology that we hadn't seen until 2013. Drone swarms, not just drones. Sophisticated, coordinated drone swarms. We just heard last night about laser-guided drones from Chris Bartell. And he's going to be on this show here in the next couple weeks. It's summertime for him, so it's very busy family time. But he was able to hop in our space last night. And man, we are going to have a killer conversation when he's here. I cannot wait. But imagine space-guided drone systems, laser-guided drone systems. That is wild to think about.
There was going to be an imminent alien invasion. And he basically nearly went crazy. And the Air Force did crazy? That.
He did go crazy. He was committed by his family.
Deliberately. And
what?
Yeah, yes. The book is really good to read, too. You can read it like in a day. It's all happened. The main perpetrator in the Air Force is a guy named Richard Doty. He's quite well known in the UAP circles. And that's what he did. And I can see that happening right now. And we could talk about this later, but you know this DoD UFO office called AARO?
Mm-hmm.
So they recently released a report.
Real quick, what does AARO stand for again?
All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office.
See, this is why it's so difficult to stamp out what seems like really good, really credible information, because at surface level, like, thank you for your service, Tim Gallaudet. You know, it is honorable, the things that he volunteered to do. And the resume is impressive. But when the guy interviewing you doesn't know what fucking ARROW stands for and how that office came to be, you know the questions that this guy is going to answer, he can fucking say anything. He can say anything that doesn't actually answer any questions, because that's what these guys do. They go on, it's a tactic. It is a counterintelligence tactic to just talk and 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 just keep talking. Just keep going. And eventually they just it's like a trance that you put them in. But you know you're not going to get great questions asked of Tim Gallaudet when the guy asking them doesn't know what the fuck the ARROW office is, or what it stands for, or why it's there, or who started it, or where it came from, and how this guy plays a role in how he fits in the entire shit tree that is the UAP UFO discussion from the government's perspective.
Office. And their report was looking at the historical kind of story of the U.S. government's UAP involvement. Congress directed them to do this report, and they basically didn't do their job. It was a lot of errors. They missed a lot. And one of the prominent UAP authorities on national security, Chris Mellon, wrote a scathing expose, if you will, on all the errors in the report and how they didn't meet the congressional mandate. And when you read that, and you can tell they're obviously obfuscating. They are deliberately not saying what they know and saying things that are patently untrue in this report that Congress directed. And so Chris wrote a great article in the debrief about it and all the flaws.
You know, the debrief, the UFO propaganda run by a guy in Germany that is on a military base on the other side of the sea. The same magazine that published the Dave Grush whistleblower expose. You know, the same online magazine that promised us a video and pictures of a triangle UFO coming out of the ocean. You know that one? The one that said head science writer who said that wormholes existed and were very real. Or, well, not wormholes, but what was it? What is that fucking, that engine, the Kubi-Air drive, essentially. A Kubi-Air drive, a warp drive. That's it, a warp bubble. Said warp bubbles are real, and then had to retract. That same one? Got it. You see, like, this is why God, I wish I could get these interviews again. But here's the thing is that these guys will never go on a show that actually has the information. And God, I would love to be a producer of just the episode. If like a Joe Rogan or, you know, even a Sean Ryan, like any one of these big platform podcasts, Alex Fridman and Kurt Jaimungal, you know, and be a producer there and be like, just ask him this question. Ask him why he thinks the debrief is a great publication, considering that they didn't wait to check the bona fides and the stories and the sources and go through the proper steps of a journalistic entity to release David Grush's whistleblowing story. Why are you using that as a credible source of a place to write a scathing response from Christopher Mellon, who's also connected to this entire, you know, tree of nonsense? And Sean Ryan doesn't know that. He's just, somebody's telling him, bro, you got to get the rear Navy admiral, because they don't do real research on these guys. It's just, the story's sexy. Holy shit, did you say a Navy rear admiral says underwater submerged objects are real? UFOs are real? A rear admiral? You sure about that? Well, technically he's a weatherman, but yes. Let's get him on. Let's talk about UFOs. This will be a big one.
And when you put that together and look at that, you can just see that is active disinformation. They're not acknowledging what they know, and they're actually putting out false information.
Why do you...
Are they, Tim? Are they? Is Arrow doing that? Who else is doing that, Tim?
Why are they putting out false information?
So this is really, it makes...
By the way, he doesn't know. He never had access to know. He's just guessing here, based off of his belief.
Sense if you worked in the government at a high level like me.
It makes sense. If you work at a high-level
branch,
government like me, they, as in the executive branch, as in the man, as in the national security state, and if you let him really detail it, he'll probably say deep state.
The National Security Council, upon direction from the president, and the Department of Defense and the intelligence community, the Office of Director of National Intelligence, they're the ones who could have the say, should we disclose or not. And the Arrow is just doing their bidding, because that executive branch, those bodies, they set the policy of the administration. I saw this in my job under Secretary of Commerce. The Trump administration wanted to do certain things, and we did those things. We actually did a lot of good, and I could talk about that the press never gave us credit for. But that's how it flows. And this administration doesn't want to do that. So Arrow is just the mouthpiece. It's the policy.
So Trump good for UFO disclosure, Biden bad. It's a national security state that's preventing this. I mean, Trump was fucking president for 4 years. He was asked the question a few times, and each time he kind of just dodged it. He's like, no, I believe the pilots. The pilots are very credible. I don't know how to do it, Trump, but I need to work on it. I should do it. But you know what I'm saying? He does the thing with the hands. He's very New York. He's very New Yorker. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not gonna workshop this here, but you get what I'm saying. Like, this is fucking stupid. This is stupid.
See, at the top level of the executive branch that directs whether they want to disclose or not. Now, it makes a lot of sense because, UFO people want to see it. But if you were Biden, would you want to tell the American public, hey, I can't keep our airspace safe. It's being visited by entities whose intent I don't understand and I can't control it. Same for our water space. Do you think he want to announce that to the American people on the verge
No, he wouldn't want to announce that to the American people. And he also doesn't want to announce the other very real thing of sub-UFOs or unknowns for known enemies of the state spying and attacking our nuclear facilities, naval fleets, etc., etc. That's also a conversation that they don't want to have. They'd much rather be answering questions about aliens in the atmosphere than China, Iran, North Korea, or Russia in our atmosphere. That is 100% for sure. And they barely answer questions on that as it is. Oopsie.
verge of the election and say, I'm not doing my job, I can't keep y'all safe? I don't think so.
Probably not. But what is the disinformation piece? Why would the Air Force be planting disinformation in researchers' homes?
Well, that was back then. I'd be hard pressed to see them do that today. But that's it. They went out of control. They were basically not aligned with the Constitution, and they did that because now they don't say it in the book. The book just talks about the facts. But it's the same thing, again, that's happening today. They don't want the public to know that there really is a crash retrieval program and that we are monitoring UAP in our airspace and water space.
Yeah, there's tons of crash retrieval programs. There's a lot of them. Chris Bartell worked on one of them and actually was part of a crash retrieval. Talked about it last night in our space. Again, go listen to it. It was a lot of fun. And when he comes on the show, we'll talk about that. A guy who actually worked on Area 51 and saw some wild shit, human-made shit. So all of these things could be true. So he's not saying anything that's necessarily a lie. They're all true, but they're just not aliens. There are adversaries. And it's just as scary, if not scarier. And what's even more scary is having a person as high-ranking as Tim Gallaudet believing it's aliens before it's believing it's North Korea, South Korea, Russia, China, Iran. That's the scary part. And that's the part that Department of Defense is really trying to get a wrangle of.
Our space, and we can't control their actions, and we don't fully understand their intentions. And that's a dangerous thing to leak to the public. And so they are deliberately falsifying it and exploiting people, making them appear as wackos, thus creating a stigma behind the whole scene, which has prevented serious scientific study. And that's why I've joined Galileo, Americans for Safe Aerospace, and the Soul Foundation to advance the scientific study of the phenomenon.
To lobby Congress to get grants to give us money to study this phenomena that we don't trust the government to do for ourselves. Because we think it's aliens and the government says it's not. And we don't believe that. So give us taxpayer dollars so we can find out and report back to you, the man.
Phenomenon.
Interesting. So the disinformation is just to discredit whoever is
that's exactly
getting
it.
into the subject.
That's right. And it's happening overtly.
This is such a propaganda-filled show. You've got a former U.S., I believe he's a Navy SEAL, in Sean Ryan, or special ops of some kind. Like all of these ex-CIA, special ops, Navy SEAL, I don't want to call them dickheads, but it's like all of you dickheads have a podcast. And if you don't have a podcast, you're regularly on podcasts hinting and implying at national security secrets and telling us how the fucking sausage is made without really telling us shit. There's so many of you guys out there. And, man, it's, the American flag, the, Trump good for disclosure, Biden bad for disclosure. It's just, man, it's got this air to it. It's got this stickiness to it. It's like a resin, man.
Today, that office is doing it. And you see it all around the media now. There's just a lot of... there are individuals who I will not name who I believe are getting paid, but every day they get out online and they're well known in this UAP community, and their number one job is to discredit these national authorities, these people like Lou Elizondo.
Lou Elizondo is not a national authority. And I can tell you right now, I wish I was getting paid to do this fucking show. I wish I was getting paid to call you guys out on your stupidity. I wish. And to put Lou Elizondo as a national authority, nobody knows who the fuck Lou Elizondo is. Outside of this community, nobody knows who he is. And the guy's been on 60 Minutes.
Who was with the task force, the UAP task force, I've met and trust.
So was he with the UAP task force or was he with ATIP? A little slip of the tongue there? little slipperoo there, Tim Gallaudet?
And no. And he is 100% who he says he is, and what he says he's seen and knows, I have total confidence in. People like
total confidence. Haven't seen it, can't verify it, but total confidence.
Him, he's getting he's an active target of
What other national authorities? So you named one, Lou Elizondo, who's now a target of disinformation. I'm assuming he means Green Street and Greenwald when he says stuff like this, because as we know, those are the names that they are floating around privately to each other, and considering them enemies of the UAP UFO state. They are felons. If you could call somebody a felon, imagine what other things you can call them behind the scenes that people like Tim Gallaudet just believe. No evidence for. No evidence that people are being paid to actively discredit people who are either A, lying, or B, just telling their truth, which happens to be really wrong.
People discrediting him and others too.
Interesting. Is there anybody I should be looking out for?
Yeah. Get specific.
Gosh, I don't study this like other people do.
Oh, no, gosh, I don't study this. I just say shit. I just say stuff like this, hoping that you don't really ask me for specifics. Like, that's the exact question I would ask behind the scenes when I got the felon 5 list. Like, felons? Who, man? Tell me, warn me, tell me who they are. Well, I don't really study this as well as I just kind of laid out. Technically speaking, now I'm getting paid $5 for 2 hours, hour and a half of actively discrediting bullshit. Thank you for the donation, Andres. I really appreciate it. Oh man, dude, this is just so silly.
Some people are they really spend a lot of time on this. Yeah,
I'll ask you
I'm just not
offline.
going to name names.
I'll ask you offline. Why? If there's people discrediting other people, if they're being paid, then say the fucking names, man. If you care so much about the community, if you want people to be well informed, Sean Ryan just asked a very simple, very, very, very important question. Who, man? Tell us. So we can go explore who these people really are, and are they threatening you? And if so, why? And if so, let's give them some shit for doing that. No, off the air. What a bunch of horse shit.
Names because I don't know. I don't want to do that. Yeah,
I understand. Yeah. I'll ask you.
I don't know exactly. You don't know. You don't know. You're just repeating what you've heard from Lou, the national authority, the only national authority that you could name, by the way. And then when that national authority gets discredited and lied about and threatened, and you've got the opportunity, you've got the platform to defend him. Rabble. You fold like fucking origami, man.
Offline. Let's get into the Galileo project.
Yeah.
That sounds
Here we go.
Fascinating. How did you get involved in that?
Yeah.
Well, again, I had left the government, and so the background is this. One of my jobs in the Navy is I was the superintendent of the U.S. Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C. So it's known for two things. It's where the vice president lives. He lives in the house of the former superintendent. So I didn't get that house when I came in. The vice president was there. But also it's this unit that has been historically been mapping the stars for the U.S. for the purpose of navigation. ships of the age of sail, our original ships, the 6 frigates, they navigated using celestial navigation. And that's how evolved to modern day star mapping, which is used for satellite navigation. So consider this: if GPS tells you where it is, or you are, how does GPS know where it is? The constellation. They reference themselves to the stars in our galaxy that are relatively fixed because they're so far away. So that you create something called a celestial reference frame, and that is the coordinate system that satellites navigate off of precisely, and then therefore could tell you where you are. So
see, like, that is fascinating, right? So and it's moments like that, I think, where he lulls you into comfort, into believing, man, this guy knows what he's fucking talking about. That's some really cool information. Satellites are positioning themselves fixed off of constellations in our galaxy because they're pretty much fixed there. And that you have to write a celestial body program to make sure that they stay on track. So that way the GPS always knows where it is while trying to figure out where you are in real time. Cool. But is UFO belief absolutely batshit crazy? That's where we're at.
Updated all the star positions. The universe is expanding, so we'd have to make new catalogs every so often. That's the observatory. Bottom line is that I got to know a lot of astrophysicists, and I learned a lot of cosmology, and I realized the universe is so giant. We'd be arrogant to think that we're the only species that's evolved to travel between celestial bodies. And so, we have 100 to 400 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy, and there are over 100 billion galaxies in the observable universe. That's just crazy. So I was open to that, and then when I left the government, I decided I'll join Galileo, because Galileo, under Avi Loeb at Harvard, he is developing a network.
Galileo that's been visited by the FBI and wasted a whole bunch of money and time going to a trip in the middle of the ocean to pick up rocks that naturally form there? That one? Okay. Oh, and by the way, they were saying that those rocks that naturally form were alien materials, possibly? That Galileo project? Okay, yeah, go on.
Network of observatories, telescopes, and other sensors to look for UAP in the near Earth atmosphere. And so he's published on several books on this topic, and I love the way he thinks. Total scientific approach, and being an astronomer and understanding the scales that I just talked about in terms of space and time, 14 billion year old universe.
You don't need to be an astronomer to understand the scale of these things. You just need to be able to philosophize and think about it. Wow, yeah, that is pretty big. That is pretty big. There are, and if you can't, there are more planets and celestial bodies and galaxies than there are grains of sand on this planet. That's a lot. That's a lot. It doesn't. I'm not a cosmologist.
You have to think, okay, in the Earth, we have evolved. We're pretty new on the scene. The Earth's been around for like 4 billion years, and we've only been, humans, on the scene for not even 1 million. And so we occupy the sliver of time in the whole scale of the Earth and the universe. And look how fast we've advanced in technology in the even tinier part of the last 100 years. So why couldn't an advanced technological civilization that evolved to go way past us and then maybe even died off millions of years ago somewhere else? So he's on this search to either find active UAP or the remnants of another technological civilization. When you think about those scales and the fact that, okay, there's life on this Earth, so we know that life can evolve on a planet. It's just myopic to think, why wouldn't it happen somewhere else in this giant universe?
No matter where you're watching Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly,
maybe don't. Do that for this show. All right, the show that actually knows what the hell it's talking about when it comes to UAPs and UFOs. This was interesting. Part 2 of Stephen Greenstreet's interview with Sean Kirkpatrick is coming, and this was funny. Like, these are all the quotes from Elizondo. Or Jeremy Corbell says Dr. Kirkpatrick lied. Elizondo says lying to the public. Open-minded approach says Kirkpatrick lied. UAP Mike saying Kirkpatrick is a liar. Adam Goldsack, what else has he lied about? Patterns tell stories. He lied. These are all the typical idiots who lead this UFO charge on a daily basis, calling Kirkpatrick a liar. So it's going to be interesting to see what part 2 entails in reference to these maniacs. Okay, so there is, I went to the 5th and 6th, I mean, first hour. Okay, I wanted to confirm right now, we've got Art Levine. We wanted to have him on today, but I think he just saw my message, so we're going to push it to Monday. But Art just had a really great article drop, and so I wanted to go over that. He dropped in the Washington Spectator, and it's amazing. Yeah, basically it's looking over the claims of Ross Coulthard, Danny Sheehan, Lou Elizondo, goes over the book deal and all of this stuff, and how all of these guys are leading, again, the tip of the spear when it comes to this UFO advocacy anarchy group. The mosh pit, they are leaders of the UFO mosh pit, and so we're gonna have him on Monday, it looks like, if not Friday, but he'll be on the first hour, so look forward to that show on Monday. Let's see here. Dave Beatty is always really cool. He's always got a really cool perspective. So he wrote, while Tim Gallaudet is certainly a very smart and inquisitive and insightful, his views on UAP are pretty much based on just getting into the subject in the public space in the last year or so. As far as I can tell, the only thing he knows about UAP from his time in the Navy or NOAA was an email about the USS Roosevelt UAP from 2015 that was allegedly scrubbed from his inbox. That email said the Air Wing was encountering a safety of flight issue and discussed canceling the operation. But the rest of this talk is all about public stories he heard. Arrow's report, books, the stories of Rick Doty, Paul Benowitz, Richard Dolan's books, and Lou Elizondo's statements, etc. He sprinkles in some science here and there, true, so it comes off as it's all science when most of it is subjective belief about ETs and the conspiracy. Again, we just highlighted those moments, right? Like, he lulls you to sleep with this cool science stuff, making you think, he's a trustworthy person, and then hits you with all of this pseudoscience bullshit. I think people should realize that even retired rear admirals can have fringe beliefs about UFOs and promote conspiracy theories they come to believe based on personal belief only. Web news sites, popular podcasts, and books they read. And it's not because they were briefed in secret programs in the DoD and are somehow more knowledgeable about the alleged, quote, active disinformation campaigns of Arrow. He says the UAP stories are facts and that there is a crash retrieval program. Jumping from, quote, there is evidence to these are facts is a bit too far of a leap for me. Agreed. It's too far of a leap for me as well, Dave. He comes off as someone like the United States Air Force pilot Chris Lato when he first came into the scene. I agree with that. That's actually a really good comparison there. He does kind of give me a Chris Lato vibe where he's like, oh shit, this really smart guy is stumbling into this very fringe conversation. But he's not just smart, he's also qualified. He's got the bona fides and a cool resume. And he does come off a little Chris Lato. Although Tim Gallaudet's not starting a podcast or a YouTube channel or doing Tim Gallaudet Bitcoin, so there is that. But who knows? Let's see where he's at in a year. Often, those people bring up this idea of disinformation agents as any skeptic that disagrees with them and makes accusations about this as a government program. Years later, They usually change their opinion and come to see skeptics like Mick West are simply taking a counter view that is mostly mistaken IDs, hoaxes, and rumors, and retold stories and see it as likely incorrect conclusions, not agents. You don't have to agree with West, and he loves to debate. I agree. And we've had Mick West on this show so many times, and Mick West is genuinely looking for the data. He's looking for the data. He's open-minded just like all of us are, but he just hasn't been shown the data just like all of us have it. All of us. He finishes here by saying it will be interesting to see the next 5 to 10 years how his views on conspiracy, government agents, crashed Bob Lazar type info, Rick Doty in the Aero office has a disinfo program aimed at deceiving the public about the truth of ET humanoids that are mad at us for treating the Earth badly. I wonder if the debrief editors really agree with these conspiracy theories, which go way beyond scientific research of what is unknown. I'll answer that for you right now. Yes, they do. The debrief definitely believes this shit, and that's why they publish it. Because they don't actually do the checking of the facts. They believe the facts as they're told to them. They don't actually research them. And Dave Beatty just nails it, dude. Nails it on Tim Gallaudet. I mean, we got to be careful with these guys, man. Like, there's, and here's Ross Coulthart. Let's see what this guy has to say. This is him on News Nation. Again, fair use. We're educating the public and critiquing the videos we are sharing. This is covered under fair use and allowable by law. Ross Coulthart on News Nation. Let's listen to this nonsense.
Might be covert agreements with NHI, unaccountable parties advancing unknown agendas, the idea that disclosure will precipitate or accelerate negative repercussions, and that there might be a quid pro quo from the NHI itself. It's not the first time people have talked from the inside about agreements, covert agreements. You might remember in my interview with David Grush a year ago, he acknowledged that there was, in his DOPSA, talk of agreements, but he was very, very vague. He didn't want to talk much at all on camera about what that all meant. Interesting. Put that one in your top pocket.
Yeah, put the story about aliens having covert agreements with the United States government in your top pocket. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, saying them all. Like, oh man, the amount of lore that these guys are peddling, and always have to go. Just frustrates me, because I know the guys that have access to this information have seen the same shit I've seen, have talked to the same people I've talked to, and yet are reaching a much different conclusion. And I don't think they're reaching that conclusion because that's where the evidence goes. I think they're reaching that conclusion because that's what pays the best. That's what gets you on a news network, a new news network. That's what gets books sold. That's what gets attention to what you're pushing. Ah, man, it's hard to believe that these guys are espousing this stuff in a good-hearted way. It really, really is. Or in a naive way. Maybe not even good-hearted, but naive. Not like they are genuinely believing the things that they're saying. It's very difficult for me to buy that. It really, really is. And we had this discussion yesterday in our space. It's very difficult. But then again, for a while, I was a well-intended, useful idiot. But I just can't imagine that an actor with very little journalistic experience can actually see the truth a lot faster and report on it better than an actual paid journalist. There's just no way this guy is looking at this information with any journalistic lens whatsoever, because if he was, he wouldn't even be here. He wouldn't even be here. Anyway, let's go here real quick. This is Tim Gallaudet's. This is, let me see, The Dead Files, Season 6, Episode 8. So, Stephen Greenstreet posted a clip of this show called The Dead Files. And let me see, it has 15 seasons. It's a reality TV show. And this is from season 6. Okay, so IMDb, let's check out The Dead Files, season 6. Let's see here, where are the top cast, photos, 16 seasons. Holy cow, dude. So this was a while ago. 16 seasons. This was 2015. So season 6, episode 8. Torn apart. A terrified mother calls on Steve and Amy to investigate claims of vicious paranormal activity in Struthers, Ohio. So this is Tim Gallaudet's wife and children in a reality TV show talking about their children's paranormal experiences. But I thought Tim Gallaudet only got into this 2 years ago, the whole paranormal world or discussion. I know demons and exorcisms and ghosts and goblins are not exactly UFOs and UAP, but they sit in the same section at the library. You find them in the same area. So when he says he wasn't into this topic until 2 years ago, forgive me if my eyes roll to the back of my skull over and over and over again, if I find it hard to believe that you only got into the topic 2 years ago when this is your family. And again, you guys, like, this is public television. So this is not a dox. This is just somebody did their homework and found your family in an episode of The Dead Files. Ay, ay, ay. So let's watch the clip, shall we? Again, fair use. This is transformative work. We're educating the public on the clips that we are sharing. This is covered under fair use and allowable by law. So this is from Stephen Greenstreet. It says, Tim Gallaudet's haunted house and psychic daughter featured on the Discovery Channel. In an interview with Project Unity, former Navy Admiral Tim Gallaudet claims his young daughter is a medium who sees spirits and can communicate with them. He also says his wife... Let's see here. He also says his wife and daughters appeared on a pseudoscience reality show called The Dead Files in 2016. Gallaudet's wife claims their house is haunted by violent poltergeists. Their youngest daughter, 6, thinks ghost monsters are hiding in their room, and both the TV show stars and her parents validate her fantasies as real. Gallaudet says he's taken his young daughter to multiple psychics to try and help her. I've pulled some clips from the show below, but I won't show the interviews with his daughters since it's so irresponsibly exploitative. That is fucking crazy. This is the kind of guy that Tim Gallaudet is. He's taking his kids to multiple psychics instead of psychologists, and then puts them on a TV show and validates their beliefs and visions That is fucking crazy. It should be noted that Gallaudet is, quote, close friends with Jay Stratton, another retired Navy official who claims his house was/is also haunted by violent poltergeists who attacked his children. And Stephen links his YouTube episodes breaking all this stuff down. Both Stratton and Gallaudet have been lobbying credulous congressional leaders to write and pass new laws about UFOs and the paranormal. So again, that goes right back like to the Sean Ryan interview and why they're part of all of these foundations. They are lobbying government for taxpayer dollars to look at spooky stuff so they can line their pockets with taxpayer dollars to look at spooky ghost UFO things. That's all they want to do. So much so that they'll put their fucking family and daughters on national television and confirm for their kids that these things are real. But let's listen to his wife explain on the Dead Files about the poltergeists in her house. This is nuts.
For some reason, things started happening once Cedar turned 3.
Let's talk about that. What's going on?
She has drawn pictures.
What kind of pictures?
I have some right here. This is the man with the brown arms. He lives in her room, in her closet.
Oh, jeez, all right.
My youngest daughter had real serious behavioral issues, and to put it, just sum it all up, she is like many of these medium that you see. She can see spirits. She saw them all the time. And there are people that have this ability to tap into whatever we want to call it, the other side, where
he didn't go to a child psychologist. He didn't go to a psychologist himself. He didn't run this by any professional at all before he just put a fucking label on it. He figured it out what it was and took him to the best psychics on the planet. What?
Where people go when they die, whatever that is, the energy that people leave behind. There's a lot of ways to explain it. And, you know, my wife and I, we, through this experience, to just be able to help her, we came to meet several mediums who are incredibly gifted. You know, there's one, it's on TV, Long Island medium, Teresa Caputo.
Wow.
It became real to us, and it opened our minds.
Wow, the Long Island medium. You're taking a child to see this person.
And I don't have all the answers, but I know what we experienced. I know what she saw. And it was even in the show I shared with you. It's called Dead Files. We had Amy, I forgot her last name, but she came on and did a show with my daughter called You Will Be Mine. And our listeners can look for that.
Wow. So that's what he did. He went and looked for it. I mean, he put this out there publicly. I'm surprised I missed this. Honestly, I'm surprised I missed this. Usually I look shit like this up. I might have just skipped that Jay interview with Tim Gallaudet. Jay was the first guy to interview him. And he takes a lot of pride in that. If he had sent me this, I would have been like, oh man, this is not good.
There's like a lot of darkness here. Even if the sun is shining, it's not really shining. It's like stormy and dark, and there's all of these unresolved issues. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of dead around.
Wow. 13 hours earlier.
Karen, when we spoke on the phone, you were pretty upset about what's going on in the house.
Yes. Most people think I'm crazy, but it's hard to do battle with an enemy you don't understand.
Okay. Give me a list of what you guys are experiencing.
It's hard to do battle with an enemy you don't understand. That sounds like a naval tactic. What kind of wife speaks like that? It's very strange talk. It's a weird way to put it.
There are things moving around the house. We're hearing voices. We've all had nightmares.
We've seen full apparitions. Now things
This is Tim Gallaudet's house and wife.
are getting physical.
Now, who's living in the house here with you?
My oldest daughter, Laurel, who's 14, my middle daughter, Aspen, who's 8, and my youngest daughter, Cedar, who is 6.
6. So this happened in 2015. So this kid was 6 years old when this was filmed. So they are 5 and 9 years older, so 15. So this kid's 15 now. I cannot imagine, just cannot imagine what kind of teenager this kid turned out to be.
I know you're married.
Yes.
I mean, she was on a TV show having her visions and stories confirmed by TV producers, reality TV show stars, and worst of all, her parents.
My husband works.
What? Why is nobody? Hey, did you guys take these kids to a child psychologist? Did you guys go to a psychologist together as a family psychologist maybe? Did anybody ask that question on production or any of the investigators?
I know you're married.
Yes, my husband works for the Department of Defense, and he travels a lot, so he's rarely here.
Okay.
For some reason,
And again, that's just like that's such a. Whoa, your husband works for the Department of Defense? What does he think about this? Oh, he believes it. And we'll say that again. They didn't take the kid to a child psychologist. They took it to the Long Island Medium. Okay. And what part of the Department of Defense you say he works for again? Rear Navy Admiral. You don't say.
for some reason, things started happening once Cedar turned 3.
Let's talk about her. What's going on?
She has drawn pictures.
What kind of pictures?
I have some right here. This is the man with the brown arms.
The man with the brown arms.
Oh, jeez. All right.
And so, again, when you have a whole family that is behind Tim Gallaudet that believes they're seeing ghosts and talking to dead people and channeling mediums and people in the after realms, and then to turn around and say, yeah, you've only been in the topic for 2 years. Forgive me if I say bullshit on your claims. Like bullshit. I don't believe you, Tim Gallaudet. I believe you have a propensity to believe these things. And I definitely believe that you believe these things, especially if you're going to put your child through something like that. That is probably some of the most irresponsible behavior I've seen from a high-ranking government person or anyone related to this topic whatsoever. That is some seriously fucked up things to do to a kid. I mean, Andres, are you still here? Like, I'd love to know what Andres thinks about this, who donated $5 earlier. This has got to be one of the most irresponsible things I've ever seen. I think your first stop with kids that have behavioral issues combined with saying they see paranormal things is a psychologist, though. I agree with that, Sparky Pilot, just to make sure. That should be your first stop. Technically, lots of people from all walks of life believe there's a holy ghost, including in the military. So it's not that odd to believe in other kinds of ghosts. I understand what you're saying. But if the flip side of that is you have extraordinary claims about underwater and above water UFOs and alien technology that's been reverse engineered by the United States military, with this attached to you, I'm sorry, I don't believe you. That automatically should discredit anything you say in regards to an unknown, an unknown. I respect people's beliefs, but once those beliefs start leaking into national security and Congress, then it's a problem. It's a problem. It is a problem. This is a big, big problem. So real quick, this is the last thing we'll talk about, and then we're going to get out of here. Congressman Robert Garcia today made some suggestions. I guess we're going to get a new version of the UAPDA, the UAP Disclosure Act that all believers have been hanging their hat on. This failed legislation that never got passed. This is something that keeps coming back up every year because they're going to keep trying to get these things passed. And so this is Congressman Robert Garcia, who's in my district, and I have a feeling I'm going to be visiting this office to see if I can bend his ear on this discussion. But he's saying, I'm offering 3 UAP amendments for the National Defense Authorization Act. So this new NDAA that's coming up at the end of the year. He writes, we must continue to responsibly push for safe reporting of UAPs and bring that transparency to the public. Okay, I could agree with that. Sure. He says this is critical for our national security. My First Amendment creates a UAP reporting mechanism for civilian pilots. My Second Amendment includes UAP disclosure provisions from last year that were blocked, including a UAP records review board. My final amendment ensures AARO has access to convert intel for investigations. So we'll see where this goes. I got to go back and refamiliarize myself with the provisions that were blocked from last year. But I know a lot of them had the acronym NHI, the non-human intelligence acronym. But this idea that AARO should be able to look at UAP records and have a review board so that way they have access to convert intel for investigations. Sure, why not? Why not? And yeah, so those were, just obviously it looks like we're going to get some more additions to the NDAA, more provisions and access for the AARO office. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens here in the next few months and what the amendment actually looks like. And I'm curious to know who's advising these lawmakers on these amendments and these provisions. I would bet they probably come from Skinwalker Ranch. That's just my guess. But yeah. Lord Ludacris here says he tells Science Bob stories like it's his. Oh, that's hilarious. I love transparency in the summer. Oh, it's the best time. Francis Sprafke, thank you for the $10 donation. I still prefer the polite you, but this channel is still good. Oh, man, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the donation. I haven't seen this name in this chat for a while, if at all. So thanks for being here. Thank you for the donation. And I prefer the polite me too. So there's that. Andre says, with seeing ghosts or imaginary friends, they only need help if it's distressing to them. Interesting. Well, it's distressing enough for them to go on a TV show. Like, they couldn't get any help. Like, the name of the TV show is called The Dead Files. The whole point of this show is to give people answers on their spooky experiences. Evidential medium, look, this is hilarious. This is the breakdown of the show. Evidential medium Cindy Kaza and former NYPD homicide detective Steve Diashivi continued to investigate allegedly haunted locations at the request of their clients to provide proof of paranormal activity. That sounds like a call to help to me. I mean, if the Ghostbusters were a real thing, they would have called them first. So clearly it's distressing them to a point where they're worried about their child. So where do they go then? What about then? What do you think about that? I'm curious. Anyway, you guys, that's the show. I had a lot of fun. And man, there's still a lot of stuff. We didn't get to a lot of stuff, so we'll save it for next week. I'm still waiting to hear back from the charities that I had mentioned in last Friday's show. You know, a lot of people are going on vacation, so, you know, I'll just be patient and wait to hear back. And we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, thank you guys for all the donations that we got in today's show. Man, we got a lot of viewers on Twitter. Over 200 people, almost 300 people watching on Twitter. So, hey, what's up, Twitter? What's up, my Twitter fam? Check out our YouTube channel. Go over there, subscribe, like, share, leave some comments. That way we hit the algorithm. And thanks for watching. So that was fun. We had almost 100 people watching today on YouTube. So that was cool. So you guys keep sharing the show. Keep telling people about it. Let's see here. What else was I going to say? I think that's basically it. Have a killer weekend. Let's see here. Did Andres? Love you, Lou. All right. Love you, Andres. Anyway, yeah, we should continue that conversation with Andres. Maybe next week. Check out our space on Thursday. Guys, I can't thank you enough. That's all I can say is always thank you. If it wasn't for the audience, obviously we wouldn't be here. But yeah, please don't forget to, again, smack that like, share, subscribe button, ring the bell. That way you're notified anytime we go live. If you want to support us with the almighty dollar, the links are in the description below to our Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can help support the show. Once again, thank you for embarking on this journey of discovery together. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and thank you for subscribing to Lou Reviews and helping us raise the bar here. Until next time, we'll see you on Monday, guys. Have a great weekend. Peace out. Guys, if you didn't get a chance to listen to the space from last night, I'm going to be uploading it to YouTube here, hopefully tonight, if not tomorrow. But yeah, enjoy the weekend, guys. Love y'all.